Good morning. This is Dina Marie, host of Faith Moments with a Franciscan moment on Mater Dei Radio. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, Jesus asks his disciples a critical question that will determine their relationship with the Master. Who do you say that I am? We discover in this account that Peter responds with a great profession of faith. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. But who do we say Jesus is? Our genuine answer to that question guides us in our vocation and how we choose to live our life out with Christ. With me today to discuss his vocation story to the priesthood and his journey to Christ through the example of St. Francis is Franciscan Friar Father Dan Pattee. Father Dan, thanks for coming back and being willing to share a little bit about your own vocation story. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Dina Marie. Yeah, this is probably one of the easier conversations I've had to prepare for because life has prepared me for this one.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's start off a little bit about where you grew up and a little bit about the faith formation in the home, your family. What was that like? How did you get introduced to Catholicism?
Well, I'm a cradle Catholic. Yeah, I was born, my father had five of us, one of whom didn't make it, was a miscarriage just before I was born. So he was a student at Notre Dame. We were all baptized there at the Basilica on the campus, Sacred Heart. And I was baptized and named after a Holy Cross priest, Father Daniel Joseph O'Neill. And we moved from there after my father graduated to Minneapolis, which is where I grew up. And it was a Catholic home. We kept practicing the faith, going to Mass on Sunday. And that was my introduction to the Catholic life. It was always part of the family from the day I was born.
Now, you had a connection with Holy Cross early on. Where was the connection with the Franciscans?
Well, that gets into the vocation question because Franciscans, I never even knew they existed until I was 20 years old, and I went away. Well, actually, 19 years old, and I went away to a seminary that was run by the community I now belong to in Pennsylvania. I did have Benedictines at my high school from Collegeville. I grew up in Minneapolis, and I graduated from Benilde St. Margaret's High School, which was at that time at least had the Benedictines of Collegeville running it. So I knew them. And then, of course, I knew the Jesuits because I was a pre-med student at Creighton, which is a Jesuit university. And I'd follow a good Jesuit into the kingdom any day because two Jesuits figured pivotally in helping me discern my vocation. The first one was Father Jim Hoff, a wonderful Jesuit. He was teaching us at Creighton University a course in medical ethics. And the first thing he had us do in our course, this was my second semester sophomore year, he had us write an essay. Why do you want to be a doctor? And I wrote to him why I was questioning being a doctor and why I might be wondering if I wanted to be a priest. And he simply wrote in the margin, "Come and see me." And that was the beginning of the conversation. I think he was hoping I would eventually be a Jesuit, but true to their charism of discernment, he helped me understand, go to this seminary out in Pennsylvania, which I did. And then there was another Jesuit, Father Bill Lynn, S.J., who was at the seminary teaching, our seminary, which is now closed, but it was announced in February 1979, that it was closing, and I took a retreat out with Father Bill, and it was an 8-day, and I never experienced, I learned the meaning of spiritual exercise in that retreat, because he exercised me. 5 hours of prayer a day. I had never done that before. And in that retreat, again, with Father Bill, the Jesuit, I discerned the TOR Franciscans, and that's how I came to them.
Wow. I'm talking with Father Dan Pattee, Franciscan Friar, and we've had so many Franciscan moments. I thought we'd have a little opportunity to hear the walk of just really hearing that call to the priesthood and becoming a Franciscan Friar. growing up, you mentioned four other siblings, three other siblings, a Catholic home. What about the home life, the parish life? It sounds like you went to Catholic schools. How do you see that impacting your ideas about who am I called to be? What is God calling me to be?
Well, there's two levels to respond at. There's a kind of a subconscious level impact that I had from the first pastor at my parish, and he was Monsignor Fenlon, who actually contracted polio and was in a wheelchair the whole time. He eventually died, of course, when I was a boy, but I used to serve Mass for him in second and third and fourth grade, and just this priest in this wheelchair preaching and having Mass left such an impression on me. I didn't realize it until later when I actually began to pursue the vocation, the impression it left. And then the person that replaced him was Monsignor Stan Cernitz, who was a wonderful priest from the Archdiocese of Minneapolis. And he asked me in seventh grade, would you like to go to the high school seminary? And I said, no, I don't think so. I'm going to go to the regular high school. Then he asked me as a junior in high school, so would you like to go to the college seminary of the Archdiocese and consider the priesthood? And I said, no, I'm going to go and be a pre-med student. And those invitations, those are important invitations. I'd say this to any priest out there, ask, because I've noticed this in the gospel. Jesus had to ask the men to follow him. And whereas, the women, they were just, they came along as they heard his preaching, they began to be attracted to him, his teaching. But the men, they had to be asked, he'd say, follow me, and how many said no? We don't know, but 12 said yes. And it's important. So those two asks were very important when 2 years later, after telling Monsignor, no, I don't have a vocation, I'm going to be a doctor. 2 years later, the questioning started within me. And I thought back to those questions. I thought, I got to give him a call. Did he see something? And of course, he did. He thought, I saw something in you. I thought maybe you might have a vocation,
Mm-hmm. Right. And it sounds like part of that asking are planting the seeds. We don't know when they're ready to take root and to start to grow. And so those planting seeds, asking those questions, making a vocation be part of what I consider as I grow and mature in my faith life. And so God bless those priests.
Right. No, it's true.
Asking.
It is, and I'm so grateful to these priests that I grew up with in my parish. My father was on the parish council, and of course, family life had its struggles. It turned out both my parents actually were alcoholics, and it wasn't a perfect family, and I don't think there is any perfect family really. But the amazing thing is, God is still capable of reaching us through these weak instruments. My mother, when I was about 9 or 10, she stopped. She got on the wagon and really, she realized what was going on and she had to stop. And my dad stopped when I was a freshman in college. And they both were good people, but flawed like all of us. But the call of God still was able to come through. And we kept practicing the faith, and they gave me the faith. I have a lot of gratitude to my parents for the gift of faith they've given me.
Right. When you entered into college, was there a sense of a Catholic community, going to Mass? Was that still part of your journey as you go into this next level of education and then being away from home? Sometimes we can fall from that practice.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's something I never did fall away from was I never did fall away from going to Mass. And even occasionally going to confession on Sunday. I went to Mass on Sunday, but I was pretty much, I think in many ways, I guess, a nominal Catholic. I was doing that, and it was minimal. It was minimal, and then I go to confession. I remember going to confession maybe a couple of times, but there were a lot of my peers around me that weren't, none of us really were that concerned with religion that I recall.
Right.
I mean, it was there that the Jesuits, had a great pastoral presence on campus and the like, but I just didn't really take it that seriously until I started getting these questions in my second semester sophomore year.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place for us to take a pause. Again, I'm with Father Dan Pattee, Franciscan Friar. We're getting a little bit into his vocation story and his road to the priesthood and also into the Franciscan community. But we are coming up to a break. Father, hold on, and then we'll continue our conversation on the other side of the half hour.
Sounds good. Thank you.